Welcome everyone to another edition of Beth Bell Live on YouTube. I'm here each week at 11:11 on Sundays Pacific time, answering your questions to relationships, to love, and to life. Anything that's causing you a little discord. Maybe it's something weighing heavy on your heart, or maybe it's something really bothering you in your mind. We can work through it on the show. Each week, I love answering questions and bringing through insights to help you navigate some of life's most difficult questions and issues when it comes to relationships with others. So I'm excited. We've got a good group of questions that came in pre-submitted. However, if you're watching live and you feel inspired to ask a question, please do. I always love to hear from you. And you can put that in the comments and I'll be sure to put you ahead of the queue if you're watching with me live. Now, if you're watching on replay, no worries. You can still put your questions in the comments, or you can go over to bethbell.me/question and add your question there. It's a little bit more private, but I do have to say I love having your engagement here on the show. So oftentimes your question is a question that many other people have and maybe just afraid to ask. So please put it in the comments and we will get right to it. Okay, I'm going to jump in today. I've got lots of stories to share, but I have a feeling that they're going to kind of come through some of the Q&A that comes through today. So we'll jump to question number 1. I've had challenges with my family because they are not interested in awakening. They all blame each other, and it's a loop that doesn't serve me. I spent less time with them over the years. However, holidays are a tough time to say no. Is there a way to go and not be negatively impacted? Now, for many of you that are watching, you're on an awakening journey. You know what that terminology means. And for others, it may be still like, what do you mean by awakening? Aren't I awake? And of course, we're awake in a conscious state when we're not asleep, right? So there's that obvious description of awakening. But what might not be so obvious for everyone is that many of us wake up at a time that is usually something that puts us on our knees, usually something that knocks our socks off. So it could be, in a sense, big love, but oftentimes it's big heartbreak. And sometimes it's an accident, or it's a health crisis, or it's something that really makes us question, why are we here? That shatters our heart, that makes life difficult. So I want to put that out there first, because I know this individual is very much on their awakening journey. And so that's what they're referring to. Now, I'm going to answer the question specific to this person, but I'm also going to broaden it a little bit more for the collective, because I think even though sometimes we don't know that we're on our spiritual awakening journey, we still have problems in our family life. So I'm going to address it, I think, from both of those perspectives. So let's see what comes through. Specifically to this situation, I get it. When people are blaming each other, it means that they are fast asleep on their journey. And it is hard when we're more awake and we're like, yeah, I see the patterns. Yeah, I see that I don't want this in my life. I don't want to be part of that energy. I don't want to be part of those stories. So the first thing that comes through is for you to not get caught in those stories. And why that is so hard with family is because they were innately instilled in us at such a young age that sometimes we don't even see the programs. We just know, like, oh, hey, I do not like that. And so there's sort of that aspect to it. But I'm feeling that you specifically know what I mean about the stories and the storylines. And so you coming into this family, you agreed to it prior to coming into this lifetime, and you agreed to be the awakening agent for your family. Now, the most important thing is, once you've identified some of those storylines, that you recognize that it's not your job to wake everyone else up. It's your job, I don't like the word job either, but it's your role to show everyone what life is like when we see things from a different perspective. So when you start showing them, as opposed to trying to tell them, or in a sense, teach them with words, we have to teach them through actions. We have to guide them along. We have to show them a different way. So what that might look like is when you start to hear one of the stories, this, I hear you say blame game, going back and forth, that you find something that you can use to divert the conversation. So you recognize, ooh, we're back in that pattern. Ooh, we're back in that thing. And if it's two other people doing something, you have a choice. Like, one, you can remove yourself from the situation so that you're not energetically impacted, or you can prepare something that you say, okay, when that comes up, I'm going to, whatever it is. An example might be, I'm going to switch the topic to something very loving, something that I know my family all agree on, something that opens our hearts and makes people want to participate in a different way. So you might be able to, just by gesture, just by stepping in with your love and your light and your presence in the room, and just saying, hey, let's talk about this, or just acknowledging, I understand that the two of you are really upset about that, whatever that is. I'd like to offer that we shift the topic and talk about things that are really more joyous for all of us, because our time together oftentimes is so short. We only get so many holidays, we only get so many days together, and offer that to them. And then they make the choice. And if they make the choice to keep going back to the blame game and being in the arguments and all that, then for sure I would say, time to step out of the room. Time to move to a different venue within the home, if possible. Time to go and offer your beautiful stories, maybe it's something that you're remembering from childhood, or just a family memory, something that brings another level of a higher vibration into the room. And when you do that and you start leading by example, and just, you've got to stay the course though, because you might go to that next room and you might get the same crap in the next room, different people, different characters, but the same energy. And the only way to break it is to keep showing them what it's like to not be in that. And when you do leave, and maybe, I hope this doesn't happen, but maybe you do have to leave a dinner early or a lunch early, or you have to, excuse yourself from the situation, but do it in a loving way. Because when you do it from a bright, light way, when you're gone, they go, oh, wait, what did we miss? And sometimes that's when the lessons come for our loved ones, is when we actually step out of the room. So that's, I guess, probably what most people refer to as tough love, in a sense, where you're saying, no, I really want to be in a very high vibe energy field, and I really want to bring this greatness to our family. And if they're not ready for it, then I want to step away. And there's nothing wrong with that, but do it from a place of love, not from a place of frustration, not from a place of, you're yelling, all of that kind of stuff. So it's really just anchoring yourself in what you know. And what you know is that these are all stories. These are stories that have been created for whatever good reason. It's all part of the soul contracts with you and your family members, that you're going to be working through this. And as that awakened person in the family, that's your role, is to show them by example, not tell them, but show them, and show them love. And I think you're going to find that there's quite a bit of shift that actually happens as a result. So I'd love to hear, though, come back on the show if you're not on with us live, and let me know how that goes. Or if you are on live, please put some comments in the chat here, and I'd be happy to answer something more or elaborate. But I think you're going to find there's some really good stuff that comes of it. Okay, we've got another question coming in. How best to introduce someone to meditation that isn't interested at all, yet could clearly benefit from the practice? Yeah, this is a really great question, because everyone can benefit from meditation, and most people avoid it. And I can say for myself, many years ago, I was like, I would try to meditate because everyone said it was so important. And I really was on my spiritual awakening journey, and I just couldn't quiet my mind. So I'm going to give this example first, and then I'll answer this specifically. But I couldn't quiet my mind. My mind was so active and so brilliant. And after the 15 minutes, I'd be like, oh man, I'm not going to be able to get that 15 minutes back. So what happened for me was, I fought meditation for a long time. I didn't feel like I was getting any benefits. And then the universe stepped in, source, whatever you want to call it, the energies that be, and put a camera in my hands. And I was in Hawaii, and I started photographing flowers, orchids specifically. And I did this for like an hour. I had this great, back then it was a big Nikon camera, and I could zoom in and take really close-up pictures. And I just became so mesmerized by the flowers. Now, what I realized later is it was the universe's way of helping me get into a meditative state, because then I realized that I was doing observational flower photography. I was observing nature. I was observing something outside of my own thoughts in a way that was quieting my mind. And eventually I started to get little messages. So I'd be looking at a flower and then a message would pop in. And I say pop in because I felt like it came out of nowhere. And it was always a very positive, high vibe thought. And I just felt like, yeah, the flower is just speaking to me. And so then I became a flower whisperer. Now, I share that story because a lot of times, many of us have to get introduced to meditation in a very different way. I look at surfers and I go, those guys in many ways are meditating. There's a rhythm that they are part of in the ocean. It's why they're drawn to it. It's why they're out there on a board. It's, it's also the community and the camaraderie. So I'm not saying it's all that, but there is like a connection that you need to make with a wave to know that it's time. You're using your instinct. And so you're quieting oftentimes. Yes, you're using your logical mind, but you're also quieting your logical mind to use more of that gut instinct. And of course your experience of what it's like to ride waves. But there's a meditation in there. Other people do it through other ways. So I'm saying this because oftentimes we want to share an app with someone, which is great too. But if they're not ready to sit in that quietness, they may have to be introduced in a different way. I always love to recommend the flowers, but it can be also just Mother Nature in general that, hey, let's just take a very intentional walk. It can also be that you recommend to someone to go to a park, let's say it's summertime, take off your shoes and feel every single blade of grass, because what you're doing then is you're actually grounding yourself literally on the ground with the soil, with Mother Nature, but you're also taking your mind out of the equation, because now you're focused on the somatic feeling of your feet touching every blade of grass. So when we get our minds sort of, like off the bus and we come into our bodies and we just sit in a more contemplative meditation like that, and that's a moving meditation. And that's helpful for a lot of people that have a very active mind, because moving the body distracts the mind. Thinking and feeling into the ground and the grass helps distract the mind. And it just brings this peace, and it brings a sense of connection that is so important, and that what happens during meditation. Now, once someone's come across that and they're getting more into this movement meditation, or yes, of course, you can go right to an app, and you might have a favorite person or a favorite, a favorite way that you meditate, and offering that to them is great. Another thing I would say is, if they seem interested, offer to them, hey, why don't we do meditation at the same time? You don't have to be in the same room. Like, they could be, in another state, and you say 7 a.m., let's meditate. I know there was a time a couple of years ago where I just felt like, gosh, I'm not as committed to my meditation practice as I want to be. And so I had joined my shaman's meditation at 7 a.m. and I went in with a group. And so I feel like if you have that opportunity to be part of a group, and it was online, it was in Zoom. So you might say, well, that seems kind of weird to be in electronics, but it was wonderful because we could see everybody. We'd come in, we wouldn't speak, and we'd go right into the meditative practice. And then after the practice, we would adjourn. And sometimes there was a little bit of talk time afterwards. But why I'm saying that is that sometimes just being in connection and community with others helps us hold that practice. And setting a specific time is also really good. And doing it first thing in the morning is also really good, because we all know, like, our schedules, things come in, emails come, texts come, this happens. And then before we know it, it's 9 o'clock or whatever, and we haven't gotten it done. Or we don't literally have time to do it because we're off to work. So setting a time and having a routine is also helpful. And so to help someone else, I would ask them to just say, hey, what time works best for you? And I'll sit with you during that time. Maybe depends on how close you are to that person, but maybe you want to make that commitment. And maybe you want to bring your whole family in on this. Maybe this is, or it's a group of friends and you say, hey, at 7 a.m. or 6 a.m., I'm going to be on Zoom and I'm going to be meditating, because that'll hold your feet to the fire in a good way. And you can offer to them, hey, you can come on with me. And whether you play someone else's meditation or you just sit in that meditation, I think you're going to find that it brings even a lot more to you, who is a more experienced meditator and sees the benefits and wants everyone else to experience it too. So I think that might be really fun for you, actually, to get a small group and really do this meditation practice together and quieting the mind. Hopefully that's helpful, and I'm happy to hear any thoughts that you might have in regards to that as well. Okay, let's go on to the next question. I am afraid to be vulnerable in all my relationships right now, yet I desire connecting with others on a deeper level. It seems to backfire on me, and now I'm feeling blocked, and I'm trying to stay on the surface with conversations, but they are not fulfilling. Yeah, I'm feeling for you that that there's something that you're I if I understood your question correctly, you're saying that you have been very vulnerable and that then it's backfired. So there's like this hesitancy there. And I think that the discernment is the lesson that might be up for you. The discernment of, is this person in a place, a space that's similar enough to me to where I can feel safe? Sometimes when we are really longing for community or connection with people, we overshare. I don't know that you've done that or not, but I'm just suggesting that there's a possibility that you may have overshared with someone who didn't deserve to know that level of vulnerability within you. And I know that you came from a very loving place, and I know you came from a place of wanting to connect. But when someone else isn't at a same vibrational resonance as you are, like they're not thinking in the same way that you are about um, who you are as a person and who you are here on the planet, they can be coming at this from a much lower vibrational space. And that oftentimes results in them not having confidentiality, them sharing with other people when it's not appropriate. And so, gosh, there's a phrase, I don't know if I can pull it forward, but it's just like sitting here. It's something about, the people who, talk about others are on like a really low vibrational scale, but the people who talk about themselves, sharing about themselves, I'm not saying like, egotistically talking about themselves, but sharing about themselves and connecting and asking questions about the other person is on a much higher vibrational level. Because when we talk about other people, it's kind of like hearsay gossip. It's not putting our best foot forward. So I have a feeling that for whatever reason, you attracted those types of people that are more into talking about everybody else and making comments about everyone else or sharing about everyone else, and sort of like that gossip energy. Even though they might not actually feel like it's real gossip, it is gossip in a sense, because it's the vibration of that. And so we want to step away from worrying about other people in that sense. If we have something really open-hearted and loving to share about someone else, great. So when you approach people now, I wouldn't close your heart. I wouldn't stay stuck in that fear of it backfiring on you. That's your work. Your work now is to stay present in this moment and realize that that's not everybody, and that's not necessarily who you're going to be attracting. And if you do attract someone that you feel like, hey, I want to have a conversation with this person, gauge what they're telling you. Are they sharing anything vulnerable? When you give them a little nugget, what's their reaction? Are they looking you deeply in the eyes? Are they giving you their presence? Are they making you feel safe? Because I think that's your work, is to just really feel into that other person and start to navigate your internal space. You can't see me, but I'm kind of going like this on my third chakra, like navigating, how does this person make me feel? Because I'm also getting that when you're sharing, that you're kind of rambling from the mind in hopes of pulling them in. And I don't mean that negatively or in a bad way. I just mean that you are that oversharing with someone who doesn't deserve it. And so feel into your body. Use this as an opportunity to fine tune your intuition, your gut instinct, not to make judgments necessarily about the other person, but to Just say, hey, how do I feel about that? And then share a little nugget, and listen to yourself as you're speaking. Like, am I oversharing? What am I sharing? Am I sharing something that I want that person to tell everyone else? And if it's no, then really consider, like, do I trust that I have that type of relationship with them at this point, that A, they know that they're not supposed to share with anybody else, and B, that they're the type of character that doesn't just go and blab to everybody else. Because unfortunately, there's more people that want to share about everybody else than talk about themselves, and in a loving, kind way, as far as vulnerability and sharing. So yeah, I actually think this is a great situation for you to be in, because it is going to teach you that discernment and that intuition and that gut instinct feeling back again. It's a great way to practice it through relationships. So hopefully that's helpful. I'm always happy to hear your comments in the comments below. Or if anyone else has struggled with this, I would love to hear from you. Okay, let's jump into the next question. My teenager has his first girlfriend. We have been friendly with her parents enough so that we agree on curfew and helping them find a dog sitter, talk about tutors, and test prep. However, I don't want to get too tangled up. Eventually, I hope they break up, if not when they go to college, if not sooner. What's a way to manage our relationship with them? Okay, so teenager, high school, I get it. Yeah, it's like first love. It's deep. There are some people that go from high school sweethearts like all the way to, a 50-year wedding anniversary. And that's beautiful if that's their soul contract. So I think number one, you're going to have to step out of trying. And I feel like this is going to sound harsh, but I don't mean it that way, that you have to try to not intervene with what is happening, because that will kind of come back in a boomerang for you. But I do want to answer the question, because I think it's a really good question. And I think acknowledging their relationship is great, but then I also feel like what you want to do is have these boundaries with the parents. And again, I'm hesitating because I'm trying to feel into the parents for a moment here, and the other parents, because there's that dynamic. And I think that if you feel comfortable with the mom, I would ask her the same question. I would say, hey, look, like, I've really enjoyed, if this is true for you, I've really enjoyed our friendship as a result of our children dating. I also recognize that they're teenagers and they're in high school. And so while I want to have this connection with you and I want to have my son be happy, I also just feel like I really just want to, pull back the curtain on this and be like, well, I do want my son and I want your daughter to explore life beyond this one new first love relationship. Do you have any ideas of how we can continue to support this, but also not necessarily commingle everything to just make it easier? And see what she says. Now, again, it totally depends upon how aware and awake you think the mom is. So hopefully she is enough to where you could have that conversation and just share with her, like, your thoughts, because she might have the same thoughts or she might not. It depends, maybe how many children she has, how focused she is on this one child. Seems like there's a lot of variables that are coming into this situation. But I do feel like you can have this conversation with her specifically and just kind of put it out there, because I think it's great that you're not wanting to just like totally commingle in a way that then it makes it difficult for them to break apart. So there's something here about not wanting it to get too comfortable and convenient, because then it might not be based on the love that those two teenagers have for each other. And it's also, I think, I don't like this word monitoring, but it's what's coming. Monitoring their time together. What I mean by that is, it's not like, no, you can only see her so much, but it's, let's incorporate other things that distract. Like, okay, let's do more golf practice. Let's do, another this activity. So get more activities in there. And also really encourage time with his guy friends, because you don't want them to couple off so much. If some of them are doing the group dating, and that's better, I think. But if they're not, then you don't want them to couple off so much. So see about how you can start inserting more time with his guy friends and activities. Maybe you plan something that similar to like a birthday party, but not that big of a deal, like where maybe it's movie nights, or maybe it's something that incorporates other people, so that you just keep exposing him to more. And then I wouldn't be taking her on trips and all these things. Like, that's not necessarily what teenagers need to do. I don't think you need to feel that responsibility just to keep your son happy. In that sense, I think, yeah, once in a while, whatever, but not making it so comfortable. Hopefully that's helpful. Okay, I know I have some other questions coming in here, so I want to just jump over to this. Okay. I recently started seeing someone. We've had 3 casual dates so far. Between those meetings, communication has been sparse and inconsistent, which left me unsure about his level of interest. I realized I actually don't know much about him, just his first name, phone number, and/or email address that doesn't reveal his last name. On our 3rd date, he asked about my intentions and shared that if there's no physical intimacy soon, he'd likely lose interest. I'm 50 and he's 59, so we're not kids, but I still felt uncomfortable with the pressure. Am I being too guarded? As an artist, I know I approach relationships emotionally, and he's in tech. Maybe we think differently. How do I know if this is a communication or compatibility issue or a red flag? I'm going to tell you what's coming right now, that it's a huge red flag. I love romantic chemistry. I love sexual intimacy. I love all of that. And that is always fun, especially in the beginning. But it's always also going to be something that's coming up in us, oftentimes that's a wound for us. And so the fact that he wants to jump to sex at this age, like, come on, we're not, teenagers at this point. It's not just hormonal. It's that I'm feeling that it's a really big red flag, in the sense that he is trying to attach onto you through the acts of sexual intimacy. And that it almost feels like what I'm getting is like these hooks, and that it's a technique. It might not even be conscious for this person. So I'm not trying to say that it's nefarious. It could be, but it feels like it's a huge wound for him to try to, really get into this relationship and grab onto you energetically. I also really don't like that there is any pressure. If you're feeling pressured, that to me is also a big red flag, because if you don't know his last name, he's not sharing, and maybe you're not asking enough questions, right? So there's that. Make sure that you're saying, okay, here's some things that I'm going to go to the next date and learn about. But also what's coming is, ask yourself, what is it about this person that's of interest to me? Like, why am I feeling this pull and this draw? Sometimes it can be, I don't know if this is true for you, but it can be that we just really like the attention. Because some men that are really going for the sex part of it, they know they have a routine of how they adore the woman, and they pay lots of attention to them, and they come in hot and say everything that a woman wants to hear. And women oftentimes love that attention. Again, I'm not saying that that's you. I'm just saying that is oftentimes what happens. And it's a game a lot of times for men. So it also depends upon where he's at in his own expansion of consciousness. Men are built for sex. We like to think that as they grow older, they also mature, and that they start to see the depths of what relationship can be for them. And I'm not getting that this guy understands the depths of relationship, because when we have any kind of intimacy like that with a man or a woman together, or 2 people, we are connecting with them on an energetic level. Like, there's a lot more happening than just a kiss or just intercourse. There's a lot happening. And so we really want to know that our soul is going to be held in a sacred space with them. And yes, of course, there's times when I'm sure everyone has probably, not everyone, but a lot of people have just gone out and had that, that one off or that one night stand or whatnot. But I don't think that's where you're at. And if that's where he's at, where he needs to see where you're at sexually before he's willing to move forward in the relationship, then he's not that interested in you. And I feel like you are just this incredible soft soul that really wants to have this deeper connection, and building that foundation in the beginning of a relationship is the most important. When we jump into sex so soon, we often allow that hormonal rush to kind of cloud our vision. That's why there's that phrase, love is blind. It's not really love. We think it's love, but it's oxytocin and all the hormones that go off in our body when we have that attention and we have that ability to have the chemistry and share, with someone. And so it's more like the infatuation stage. And so we want to get into the deep love phase, because that's where the unity comes. That's where the connection comes. That's where we feel like, yeah, the deeper nuances in relationship that we can't have on our own. So I think it's so important that you really feel into what you're feeling about this individual, because there are some serious red flags. I'm feeling that for you. And it's most important that you feel into you. And hey, is that really, because you're saying, is it a red flag? I don't think this is a compatibility issue per se, other than you're not compatible from, your spiritual journey. You're not compatible from an awareness journey, from a place of wanting to know the person on a deeper level. I mean, definitely having his last name, being able to even Google someone if you want, or look them up on Facebook, or any of those things. Another thing that you could potentially, if you really feel like you like this person. So I'm going to go back to one other thing that I mentioned earlier. Just feel into what is it about you that is attracting you to him when you're feeling some of these things that are off. So what is the pull? What is the pull? And I think you're going to find some juicy nuggets in there for you as to why you've attracted this particular person in your life. And it may be that you can just stop a cycle if you're feeling like this is a pattern. If you feel like, hey, yeah, I've kind of attracted some of these guys that feel more mysterious and less trustworthy, because that's how I feel like he is. I hope I'm wrong, but I feel like he's definitely not being in his absolute truth, and that he's not being 100% transparent with you. Otherwise, you would feel like you know more about him. So think about the questions you're going to ask on the next date. Feel into how you feel and trust that gut, trust your intuition. I know you've got it, and you've got it strong. So you're asking this question for a reason. And I don't know about the question, am I being too guarded? I'm just feeling into that I feel like you're being guarded because it's a pattern. And so I feel like there is a good protective mechanism there, but what we really want to do is blow up the pattern and bring in men who are emotionally available, who want to connect with you for your beautiful soul, and who want to build a life with you if that's what you want. And I don't mean like you're jumping into that right away, but I mean that you're building something, a foundation that is worth building a home on, meaning building, a longer term relationship on. I'm not saying you're moving in or any of that. I'm just saying, figuratively speaking, that you're building something where you guys can share in this love and this light together, not just have it be a sexual romance, because chances are he'll just be sucking off of your light. And I don't think that's what you want. So I think the guarded part is good, but we want to blow the pattern up so you don't have to guard yourself anymore and not attract these guys. Hopefully that's helpful. I'm happy to hear your comments here. If you want to go deeper and more personal, you can always book a session. I would love to chat more. Okay, let's go on here to the next question. My boyfriend often goes out in the evening with friends and doesn't tell me where he's going or what he's doing, and sometimes doesn't text when he gets home. Am I off thinking this is unacceptable? Is he cheating on me? Kind of interesting, isn't it, that this comes right off of that last question, and I'm not intentionally trying to link them, but energetically, I feel like there is a link here that is all about transparency, that sometimes people don't share because of their own wounds, their own issues, their own wounds from previous relationships. What we want to do though is uncover those. And if someone isn't interested in uncovering and letting go of wounds, then they're probably not going to be in a place that you're going to grow with them exponentially. You might have a little fun, you might have, yeah, great romance, but if they're not willing to work with you, I'm assuming, I don't like the word assuming. I'm feeling like you are someone, because most people that tune in here are on a spiritual awakening journey and they are looking for more soulful relationships. So I'm feeling, yeah, like he is definitely not being transparent, and that, you know, there's emotional infidelity that can happen. And I feel like that's what's happening here, is that he's not making himself emotionally available to you. And sometimes honestly that just takes time, and that's fair. So time is helpful because we want to get to know someone before we can dive deep or share. Not everyone is so good at just, you know, diving in and sharing, you know, their deepest, darkest fears in life, and that's okay. But if they're not willing to be there with you in this beautiful space where, yeah, where you're wanting to help each other work through some things, then that's a bit trickier. And I think you really want to take a step back and just say, um, I would just ask the questions. And I'm kind of thinking you've done this already, that you've asked the questions about, you know, because you're saying he doesn't say where he's going, what he's doing, asking the basics. Like, well, what is it that you're not feeling comfortable to share that with me? And if he comes back and says, oh, well, you just don't need to know, like, you know, that's too controlling, or, you know, I want my freedom or whatever, then I think you need to feel into, like, where is your relationship? Are you newly dating? I don't think you mentioned that. Or have you been dating for a long time? And so there's sort of going to be that time frame too, that I think is going to going to give you some data points. But yeah, you want someone right out of the gate that wants to tell you where they're going. Feel into, like, well, am I being overly not protective, but overly needing to know? Because there is that. Sometimes it is us, but a lot of times it's not, because it's just easy. If it were a girlfriend, she would tell you, she'd say, hey, I'm going here, or I'm hanging out with these friends, or I'm doing that. So think of it maybe in that term as well. Like if you had friends, they would tell you, they would, you know, girlfriends, they would tell you what they were doing and where they were going. And it wouldn't feel like it wouldn't feel like someone's making you feel like you're asking for too much. So feel into that feeling of, why are they asking or saying things to you that are making you feel like you shouldn't be asking? Because if it's a genuine question that you have, then I think they should be willing to answer it. It's basic stuff. I don't know if he's cheating on you. I think, as I said, he's emotionally, it might be emotional infidelity, whether it's, you know, his own emotions that he's not being, you know, honest with you, but it also feels like there's probably other women that are, you know, friends, but they might be friends with benefits. They might be friends that he's wanting to get the attention from. And that's a slippery slope and not something you want to be part of. If a man can't let go of the other women in his life, then that's not a man you want to be with. If you can't go and meet with anyone that he's meeting with, then it's not someone you want to be with. It's because that's not a relationship that is clean between him and the other person. You should be able to take your partner around. Now, again, I don't know how long you've been dating, so I'm not saying, like, if you've only been dating for 2 weeks that he needs to introduce you to everyone, because you're both still exploring. But I'm feeling like this is a little bit longer relationship. So again, I think you really got to tune into you and feel into, like, what is it here? Why are you asking for someone, I feel like, that's of lower vibration than you? Because there's no reason why someone can't tell you the details of their life. That's the beauty of relationships, is that we get to share our life experiences with another person, not out of obligation, but because we just genuinely want to say, like, hey, here's how my day went. Here's what I did. Here's where I went. And here's what I experienced. And if someone's not willing to share those life experiences with you, then I don't think that they're the type of person that you want to build a foundation even with. And I guess the other thing that's coming is cut the cords early. Oftentimes, and I'm going to say this sort of generally speaking, and I'm sorry because I know there's a lot of men out there that are very conscious, and so forgive me, but a lot of times women are more ahead of the game, and we wait around a long time for men to grow up, for men to emotionally grow up. And if they're not willing to put their foot in and they're not willing to take the steps on their own, and sometimes it's just baby steps, that's all we need from them. But if they're not doing the baby steps, then let them go early, because the entanglement only gets deeper and more difficult to get out of later. And you end up being the crazy one because you're the one that has the greater awareness and the greater mindfulness, and you're able to see the landscape of what's happening, and they're just playing a game. So if that doesn't resonate for you, it's okay. It might be something for the collective, but I do feel that now is the time that a lot of, again, I want to say light workers, way showers, more advanced beings, ones that have done a lot of the work, are spending way too much time in lower vibrational energy fields trying to pull someone along. If they're willing to do the work, great. They can walk right next to you. They don't have to be where you are, but they're willing to do the walk with you and do the talk with you. If they're not, then let them go, because there's someone else out there that wants to play those games with them that's going to be a much better fit. And because you care so much and you're going to give so much and you're willing to share so much with them, you're the one that's going to end up feeling really depleted, and they're just going to go on to the next one. So just feel into what it is that you need to heal to not attract people who aren't willing and ready to dive in with you, because that is the fun part of relationships, is to dive deep and to get into that sacred soul space and to experience unity with another, with your beloved. So I wouldn't waste the time, I guess, is ultimately what I'm saying is, move quickly and communicate, share your needs. And if they're not able to respond, or they're not able to let it sink in, or they're whatever it is, then just let them go, because the time is now for us to keep ascending. The time is now for us to keep growing. The time is now to keep shining the light and helping others move out of this very chaotic time. And it's the chaos of the mind. So I know I went off on a little bit of a dissertation there, but I think it's so important right now that we all just really look at our relationships, whether it's our lovers or our family or our friends, and say, is this person supporting me energetically, emotionally, spiritually, or is this person taking me down? Is this person adoring me? Am I adoring them? Am I giving them my presence, my time, the best of me? And time is now to let some of those people fall away. And again, it's not just lovers, it's friends, it's family. It's in a beautiful way, not in a FU way, in a way that you go, yeah, I just want to start shifting my time away from that vibration and into other vibration. And that might mean that you have to put a little effort into finding new community. Maybe you're going to a meditation studio and you're making conversation with people and you're meeting new friends. And then the next thing you know, you get invited to something else and you get invited to something else. That's also breaking a pattern, because sometimes we just so comfortable with our friends and we just like, oh, they know us. But if they're not growing with us, which is what's happening right now, then it's time to, just deprioritize them, I guess is a nicer way to say it, because they don't have to completely leave your life. You definitely do not ghost them, nothing like that. Just say, hey, to yourself, like, it's time for me to get into relationships where I feel loved and adored and cherished, and I can do the same for them. And if you're feeling like you're too judgmental on them because they're not in the space you want them to be, then that's the same thing. Then you're projecting a negative energy onto them. And so you want to release them and let them go. There's someone else for them that's better matched for their, for their vibration. So So just feel into that and see how that comes forward for you. And if you're still on live, I would love to hear your comments on that and what you're feeling and if that's hitting the spot for you. Okay. All right. I think we've got one last question. We're almost down to the wire here. So let's see here. I think I'm going to take one more. There's just a few here, so I'm just going to look through and see which one might be the most. Okay. Okay. I feel like my emotions are triggering with everyone all the time lately. Does this mean something? Am I just hormonal, or is there a deeper meaning behind this? So I'm assuming this is coming from a woman just because you're referencing hormones. And I think there's a mix of everything here for you. I think that, yeah, there probably is somewhat of a hormonal imbalance happening, but I wouldn't worry so much about that because it could be cortisol and oxytocin. It could be, more estrogen, progestin, testosterone. There's like so many different chemicals that impact our brain. I think what I would focus more on, or at least what I'm feeling for you right now, is I would focus on the triggers. If you're triggering other people, right? So I feel like my emotions are triggering with everyone all the time lately. So yeah, feel into why am I doing this to my loved ones or my friends or my family? And can I get myself back to a blissfully neutral state sooner? Is there a way that I can anchor in? And sometimes that just means saying, I feel really emotional right now. It really doesn't have anything to do with you. You may be triggering something in me, but could we just table this and talk about it later? I know that one day a dear friend of mine was trying to give me some advice on something, and I said, you know what? I so appreciate that you're wanting to share something with me right now, but I'm just not in the right mental space. I'm just tweaked about this topic, and can we just table this? And she said, yes, of course, because I could feel it in myself, and I could feel that I wasn't going to be receptive to what she said. I wanted to be, but I was just in that trigger myself. And so I had to go back, and just reflect on it and say to myself, oh, well, what was that all about? Okay, well, it's because I'm frustrated with A, B, and C, X, Y, and Z. And let me get to that frustration on my own. And then maybe I'm open to her great ideas and I can hear more about what's coming forward. So I think that can be really helpful when you're feeling yourself triggered, and just allow yourself to feel that emotion. That's really important, but do it in a way that's not stuffing it down. Here's the big difference, right? You're like, oh, I'm not going to feel that way. Versus I'm feeling this way. It's not about you. Let's table it. Let me work through it later. And maybe your friend says, oh gosh, okay, well, let's, do you want to work through it now? And maybe that friend can actually help you work through the trigger as opposed to the of the conversation. So I think just acknowledging it is the first step, and then reflecting on it at a time when you can really dig into it, but just ultimately getting yourself to that more neutral state so that emotion isn't just like wah onto someone else, because I know how difficult that can be when we're feeling it and we're in the energy of it. All right, hopefully that's helpful. I know we are down to the end of the show here. I so appreciate each week that you tune in at 11 a.m. Pacific time. Each week there's so many great questions that come through, and I know that whether it's yours or someone else's, it helps a lot of people. So please tune in again. And in the meantime, there are lots of resources on bethbell.me. There's the Awakening and Healing Handbook. There is the Psychedelics Resource Guide and the Herpes Handbook. All great resources for various reasons, whether you have a virus of the mind or you want to have your next breakthrough on your spiritual journey and you want plant medicines or other psychedelics to help you out, or if you're just wondering about some really great techniques to help you, tips and techniques to help you break through some of the patterns and programming that are holding you back from living your divine blueprint. All right. And if you haven't already done the State of the Heart assessment, you can also go to bethbell.me and get that and get your results. It's fun to see exactly where your heart is. Is it blocked? Is it broken? Is it healing? Or is it whole? And of course, there's also private sessions that you can book on bethbell.me. All right. Until next week, I'm wishing you much bliss and love on the journey. Namaste.